What do you do when your surgery is postponed? Do you go home like your husband said? Or do you follow the feeling screaming in your chest? I chose the second option. Now I'm standing outside Evermore Diamonds, watching the man I married for 6 years place an engagement ring on another woman's finger. He looks happier than I have ever seen him. My name is Maya. I am 34 years old. My job, my entire professional identity, is built on finding the signal in the noise. At Innovate Solutions, I am the person they call when the data sets are too massive, too chaotic, and they need to find the pattern. I predict risks. I quantify liabilities. I am, by all accounts, excellent at what I do, which is why I felt so utterly useless sitting in a paper gown at Mercyview Hospital, my insides churning with a pain I couldn't quantify. It was supposed to be a simple gallbladder removal. My husband, Liam, had been there earlier. He is 36, a star financial advisor at Viridian Trust, and he had played the role of devoted husband to perfection. He stroked my hair, his brow knitted in that way that made clients trust him with their life savings. "I am so sorry I have to run, baby," he whispered, his voice smooth and concerned. He kissed my forehead, his lips cool. "This meeting with the board is an absolute emergency. It just came up. I can't possibly move it." "It's fine. Liam, go," I said, trying to smile. The pre-op meds were making the edges of the room soft. "It's a routine procedure. I'll be out before you're even finished." "My tough girl." He smiled, that brilliant, confident smile that charmed everyone. "I'll clear my afternoon. I'll be here when you wake up, I promise." I watched him walk away, his tailored suit immaculate. He didn't look back. I was counting the acoustic tiles on the ceiling when the surgeon, a tired-looking woman with Patel on her badge, walked in. She wasn't smiling. "Mrs. Walker Maya," she said, her voice flat. "I'm afraid we have a situation. A 5-car pileup just came in from the interstate. We need the surgical suite for an emergency trauma case. We have to postpone your procedure." My breath caught. Postpone? For how long? 24 hours, she said, already checking her pager. "We can get you in same time tomorrow. You're stable. You can go home and be much more comfortable." A nurse came in to remove the IV port. I felt a surge of bitter frustration, followed by an odd, shaky relief. I wouldn't be cut open today, but I'd spent a week psyching myself up for this. I sat on the edge of the bed in my street clothes, the flimsy hospital wristband still tight on my arm. I pulled out my phone. I could call Liam. He would undoubtedly sigh, apologize profusely for being unavailable, and tell me to take a taxi. He would be trapped in his emergency meeting and feel just terrible about it. I couldn't stomach the performance. Not his, and not mine. I texted him instead. "Surgery postponed 24 hours. Emergency case took the OR. Don't worry, just heading home to rest. See you tonight." His reply was almost instantaneous. "Oh no, that's awful. So sorry, baby. Rest up. I'll be home as soon as I can break free. Love you." I pocketed the phone and walked out of Mercyview into the bright, cold Denver afternoon. The taxi felt stuffy. I didn't want to go home. Our penthouse apartment, usually my sanctuary, suddenly felt like an extension of the sterile hospital. Empty. Waiting. "Actually," I said to the driver as we approached my exit, "can you stop at the Cherry Creek Mall?" I didn't know why I said it until I was there. I needed noise. I needed life. I told myself I wanted a new book to read and a decent coffee, something to kill the metallic taste of anxiety in my mouth. I paid the cab and walked into the atrium, pulling the thin jacket I'd worn over my clothes. I must have looked strange, pale and drawn, still wearing the plastic Mercyview admission band. I was walking past the blindingly bright jewelry stores when I froze. I saw him. Through the polished glass of Evermore Diamonds, I saw my husband. He wasn't in a suit. He was wearing dark jeans and a gray cashmere sweater. He looked relaxed, healthy, and happier than I had seen him in years. He was laughing. A full, genuine laugh that I hadn't heard directed at me in a very long time. He was not alone. He was standing opposite a young woman, maybe in her mid-20s. She was beautiful, with long, dark hair and a bright red dress that clung to her. My mind raced, trying to build a logical framework for this data. A client, a relative. Was he buying a gift for me? A bizarre post-surgery surprise. Then the salesman, hovering nearby, handed Liam a small, dark box. Liam didn't hesitate. He opened it. He turned to the woman, his face illuminated by a smile so bright it was radioactive. I couldn't hear his words, but I saw her reaction. Her hands flew to her mouth, and I watched, paralyzed, as my husband, Liam, took a sparkling, massive diamond ring from the box and slid it onto the fourth finger of her left hand. She burst into tears, tears of joy. She launched herself at him, wrapping her legs around his waist, and he held her, burying his face in her neck. My hand went to my pocket. My fingers felt numb, thick, and stupid as they fumbled for my phone. The entire mall seemed to recede, the noise of the shoppers fading to a distant roar. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would break the ribs my gallbladder was nestled against. My hands were shaking, but my training as an analyst, the part of my brain that demands evidence, took over. I raised the phone. I watched through the small screen as they kissed. It wasn't a friendly kiss. It was deep, hungry, and possessive. I pressed the button. The click of the camera shutter sounded like a gunshot in the sudden, terrible silence of my world. I had the picture. It was clear. It was undeniable. It was data. The dull, aching throb from my gallbladder was nothing. It disappeared completely, eclipsed by a new, articulated pain, a sharp, frozen blade sliding directly between my ribs. I had been worried about a routine surgery, all while my husband was performing an excision of his own. I don't remember the taxi ride home. The next thing I knew, I was standing in the foyer of our penthouse, the white marble floor, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Denver skyline. It all looked different. The space I had designed to be a sanctuary now felt like a high-end crime scene. The air was thin. I didn't cry. Tears are inefficient. They cloud the data. I walked past the beige sofa we'd picked out together and into my home office. I sat down in my ergonomic chair, plugged in my work laptop, and watched the secure boot sequence light up. The pain in my side was a dull, distant throb. The image of that kiss, of that diamond, was a clean, sharp spike. It was the new data point. All previous assumptions about my life were now invalid. He came home hours later, well after 8. The sound of his key in the lock made my spine straighten. I heard him place his briefcase on the hall table, the soft thud of his coat. "Maya," he called out, his voice full of practiced concern. "Baby, I'm home." He appeared in my office doorway, holding a bouquet of white lilies. My stomach turned. Lilies, for funerals. The meeting was a nightmare. He sighed, rubbing his temples. Just dragged on and on. "How are you? How did it go? Are you in pain?" I turned to him, my face a mask of weary relief I had been practicing for an hour. "It's done," I said, my voice intentionally soft. "It went fine. They said it was textbook. I'm just tired. The anesthesia is wearing off." He came over and kissed my hair. "My poor girl. You should be in bed. Did they give you painkillers?" "Yes." I lied. "I'm just trying to tie up one small thing for work before I sleep." "You're a machine. Maya." He smiled, that brilliant, empty smile. "I'm going to shower. You get to bed. Doctor's orders. My orders, too." He didn't notice. He didn't see that I was still in my street clothes. He didn't look for a bandage, didn't ask to see a single incision. He saw only what he wanted to see: the dutiful, sick wife, recovering as scheduled, clearing the way for his more important life. I waited. I waited until I heard the shower, Then the soft click of our bedroom door. I waited another hour, tracking the pattern of his breathing through the baby monitor we'd bought years ago when we were trying and never got rid of. When his breathing settled into a deep, rhythmic sleep, I began my project. I took my laptop and a bottle of water into the guest bathroom, the only room in the house with a soundproof tested door, and locked it. I sat on the cold tile floor and dialed. Jenna picked up on the third ring, her voice gravelly with sleep. This better be a 5-alarm fire. Maya, it's 1 in the morning. Jenna, I said, my voice a low, flat whisper. I need your help. It's a personal project. Off the books. I need you to find everything on a target, but you have to do it from the outside. I need a ghost. I need every piece of financial data you can find. There was a pause, the sound of a keyboard clicking. This isn't for Innovate, is it? No. This is Liam. It wasn't a question. Yes. God, Maya, what did he do? Just get me the data. Jenna, I'll handle the rest. Okay, she said, her voice instantly sharp. All business. Okay. I'm in. Give me the account parameters you know. I'll start the sweep. While Jenna worked her magic from the outside, I started from within. I had 6 years of shared financial life to analyze. I opened spreadsheets, bank portals, and investment trackers. I wasn't a wife. I was an auditor. I ran regressions on our spending, looking for anomalies. It didn't take long. Small, regular withdrawals, cash back from grocery purchases that were slightly too high, expense reports from Viridian Trust that didn't quite match the dates on our shared calendar. These were the tiny signals in the noise, the ones I had been too busy, too trusting, too much in love to ever look for. The signals all pointed in one direction. They led me to a routing number I didn't recognize, linked to a transfer I'd assumed was for taxes 2 months ago. It wasn't for taxes. It was a seed deposit for a new account, a private account. At 3:15 in the morning, my secure chat pinged. It was Jenna. Found it. Viridian Rival Bank. Sole signatory Liam R. Walker. Paperless statements, routed to a P.O. box. He's good. Maya. He built a near-parallel digital identity. How much I typed. That's not the bad part. The bad part is the source. My screen split, and Jenna showed me the transaction logs. She had gained access. It wasn't just small transfers. It was massive. $30,000, 2 months ago. $50,000, 6 weeks ago. Another $20,000. Just last week. He had been systematically draining our joint savings account, the money we had set aside for a new home, the money my bonuses had largely funded. He had transferred over 60% of our liquid assets. I stared at the numbers, the lilies in the other room, the kiss in the jewelry store, the emergency meeting. This wasn't just a midlife crisis. This wasn't a simple, pathetic affair. He wasn't just replacing me with a new woman. He was actively, methodically, and maliciously planning to erase me from our financial life. He was planning to leave me with nothing. The project had a new scope. Jenna was a digital ghost, but I was the one who knew the architecture of his mind. He's arrogant, I messaged her, my fingers flying. He trusts his own security. He'll have a home server, not cloud-based. He'll think he's smarter than any provider. Look for a NAS drive connected to the main router. It took her 17 minutes. 17 minutes to bypass a firewall he had probably spent days configuring. I'm in, her message read. But it's heavily encrypted. This is beyond standard consumer grade. He's running a custom script. This will take try Apex Advisor 2024. I sent, or Viridian King. Something ego-driven. Or not. She replied a moment later. Maya My Anchor 06. That was the password. The sick bastard. My stomach hollowed out, but I ignored the feeling. Get me the directory tree. What Jenna found wasn't just a hidden folder of love letters. It was an entire, meticulously organized parallel life. The server was partitioned. One side held our taxes, wedding photos, and music library. The other, The one he'd named Contingency was a fortress. Jenna sent me the file structure. It was a blueprint for a new life. Folders labeled Cayman Project, Client Diversification, Personal Assets, Gala Speech. This isn't just an affair, Maya. Jenna's voice came over our secure audio channel, low and furious. This is a different level evil. I clicked on Personal Assets. It was full of emails, texts, and explicit photos. The other woman, the one from the store, her name was Chloe, but a quick cross-reference of her email address with a public records search told me everything. Chloe Davies. She wasn't some naive 20-something. She was a 30-year-old licensed real estate broker. I dove into the Cayman Project folder. It contained more than just pictures of a white sand beach. It held scans of LLC formations, wire transfer directives, and architectural plans for a sprawling 10,000-square-foot villa. Chloe was the broker on all of it. She wasn't just his mistress, she was his business partner. She was actively helping him launder my money, our money, through a series of shell property purchases. He's liquidating, I whispered, the cold of the bathroom tile seeping into my legs. He's converting all our joint assets into offshore real estate under her name. Wait, Jenna said. There's more. The client diversification folder. It's not his client list. It's a separate set of books. Oh my God, Maya. He's not just stealing from you. Jenna, a true artist of her craft, had already decrypted the ledgers. They were beautiful, in a horrifying way. Liam was running a classic Ponzi scheme. He was using his position at Viridian Trust to siphon money from his own clients. He would take in a new investment from client A, and instead of investing it, he would use a portion to pay a fake dividend to client B, reassuring them of their high returns. All the while, he was skimming the vast majority, moving it from Viridian's accounts, through a series of offshore transfers, and into his secret bank account, the same account he'd used to buy the ring. My eyes scanned the list of names. These were people who trusted him, people who had come to our house for Christmas parties. Then I saw one name that made the blood drain from my face. Eleanor Bishop. I knew that name. Liam had pointed her out at a charity event. My favorite client, he'd called her, with that warm, trustworthy smile. An absolute sweetheart, widowed. I handle her late husband's entire pension fund. I opened her file. It was a massacre. He had taken everything, a lifetime of savings, over $2 million, gone. Drained over the last 6 months in increments small enough to avoid regulatory triggers. I cross-referenced the dates. The last and largest withdrawal from Mrs. Bishop's account was for $75,000. It was dated 2 days ago. I went back to the personal assets folder. I found a scanned receipt, tucked away, from Evermore Diamonds, item 3 carat, round cut, platinum solitaire, amount $75,000. He hadn't just bought his mistress a ring. He had bought it with a widow's stolen pension. The rage that filled me was no longer personal. It was pure, white, and cold. This wasn't a broken heart. It was a statistical anomaly that needed to be corrected. This was a debt that needed to be paid. My pain was a single data point. This was a trend of destruction. I looked at the last folder. Gala Speech. When is it? Jenna asked, as if reading my mind. I opened the file. It was a calendar invite. The Viridian Trust Apex Advisor, annual gala. The biggest night of his career. It was 1 week from today. He's planning to run, I said. He's going to accept his award, announce his promotion, which is really his exit, and then he and Chloe are going to disappear. We go to the police, Jenna said, her voice firm. We go right now. No. I closed the laptop, the plan already forming in my mind. The data was incomplete. The police will arrest him. They will freeze everything. The bank will cover it up. The clients will be buried in litigation for years, and Mrs. Bishop will never see her money. Maya, what are you thinking? I'm thinking he wants to be apex advisor, I said, my voice devoid of all emotion. He wants a stage. He spent a year building a narrative. I'm not going to let him change the ending. He wanted to be the star. I was going to give him the performance of a lifetime. I couldn't just file for divorce. A quiet, civilized separation was what he would expect. It was also the worst possible move. A divorce proceeding would be slow, private, and messy. It would give him time to hide the remaining assets, time to disappear. He would leverage Viridian Trust's legal team to bury me in paperwork, painting me as the unstable, scorned wife, while he and Chloe vanished with millions. The data demanded a more public, more definitive solution. This wasn't a marital dispute. It was a high-level fraud operation. My first call was not to a lawyer. It was to Eleanor Bishop. I used a secure, untraceable VoIP line. I couldn't risk using my own name. Mrs. Bishop, I began, my voice steady. My name is irrelevant. I am an internal auditor with Viridian Trust. I am conducting a review of your portfolio, held by Mr. Liam Walker. I need to verify several recent transactions. She was, as I'd anticipated, sharp and guarded. An auditor I don't understand. Liam handles everything. He's a dear friend. If you have questions, you can speak to him. I am speaking to you. Ma'am, I said, my tone flat. Because Mr. Walker is not authorized to liquidate your pension fund to purchase jewelry. Did you, on October 12th, authorize a payment of $75,000 to Evermore Diamonds? The silence on the other end of the line was a physical thing. That's not possible, she whispered. He told me that was a high-yield, short-term bond, an exclusive opportunity for his best clients. There was no bond. Mrs. Bishop, he bought an engagement ring. I am sending you a secure link to a file. It is the receipt. He paid for it from an account funded entirely by the liquidation of your assets. I heard a small gasp, then the frantic click of a mouse, then a long, ragged breath. That young man, she said, her voice shaking, not with sadness, but with a sudden, cold fury. He sat in my kitchen. He ate my blueberry scones. He looked at photos of my late husband and told me he would protect me. He called me Mom when he visited. He is planning to flee the country in 1 week, I said. He is taking everything he has stolen. What do you want me to do? She asked, her voice now pure steel. For now, I said, you do nothing. You act as if you suspect nothing, and you will be my guest at the Apex Advisor Gala. I'll arrange everything. An alliance was formed. At home. I played my part. I was the recovering invalid. I moved slowly. I winced when I reached for a glass of water. I leaned on him heavily when I walked, forcing him to play the role of the doting husband. You're looking pale, Maya, he said one night, his eyes on his phone. Just tired, I whispered, resting my head on his shoulder, fighting the urge to recoil. I'm so glad you're here to take care of me. I don't know what I'd do without you. Of course, baby, he said, patting my head. Just rest. My perceived weakness made him arrogant. It made him careless. He left his work laptop unlocked. He took urgent calls with clients on the patio, not realizing I had already asked Jenna to turn my phone into a high-gain microphone that could pick up his every word. Jenna, meanwhile, had created a perfect byte-for-byte clone of his entire encrypted home server. She had everything, and she found the VoIP call logs, the audio files of his calls with Chloe. She sent me one. I listened, my earbuds in, while Liam slept soundly beside me, his breathing deep and untroubled. I heard his voice, laughing. Just have to endure the sick, weak bookworm for 1 more week. Chloe, honestly, this gallbladder thing is a blessing. She's so wrapped up in her own pain. She hasn't even looked at the joint accounts. Chloe's voice, high and saccharine. My poor, brilliant man, having to play nurse? Don't worry. Soon you'll be on a beach, and I'll be nursing you. They laughed. I saved the file. But I wasn't just relying on Jenna. I used my own money, a private inheritance account Liam had never known about, to hire the most ruthless financial crimes lawyer in Denver, and with him, a team of private investigators. He's a cheat, I told the lead investigator, a former FBI agent. But I think he's more than that. I need you to find everything: his partner, his offshore activities, any personal liabilities. They delivered their report 48 hours later. They had found the Cayman LLCs. They had a photo of Chloe's new car, a red Maserati, and they had found something else. This is unusual, Mrs. Walker, the investigator said, sliding a document across the table. This was taken out 6 months ago. It's a life insurance policy. I read the paper. My name was at the top. The policy was for $3 million. The sole beneficiary, in the event of my untimely death, was my husband, Liam, 6 months ago. The exact time my mysterious, debilitating gallbladder attacks had begun. The room suddenly felt very cold. He wasn't just planning to replace me. He was planning to profit from my absence. The week was a performance. It passed with the surreal, heightened tension of a play about to reach its climax. We were, to the outside world, the perfect, loving couple. I made him chicken soup, citing my slow recovery. He read me articles from financial magazines, boasting about his portfolio's performance. Every interaction was a lie layered on a lie. Liam was in an exceptionally good mood. The gala was all he could talk about. He was the shoo-in for the Apex Advisor Award, the bank's highest honor. "It's just a formality, of course," he said one evening, swirling a glass of expensive scotch I had bought. "Thorne basically told me it's mine." "That's wonderful, Liam," I said, looking up from the book I was pretending to read. "You have to be there." "Maya," he said, his tone insistent. "I need you front and center. You're my lucky charm." I looked at him, the man who had signed a $3 million death warrant on me, who had stolen a widow's future. I smiled, a slow, warm smile that I had perfected. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," I said. The next day, a large, flat box arrived from Neiman Marcus. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a stunning evening gown of deep, sapphire blue silk. It was exquisite. It was also a size smaller than I usually wore, a subtle, constant reminder that he saw me as fragile, diminished. "You'll be the most beautiful woman there," he said, kissing my temple, "my beautiful, recovering wife." The true test of my composure came 2 days before the gala. He came home, positively beaming. "Maya, I have the most wonderful news," he announced, pouring us both wine. He handed me a glass, which I accepted. "What is it?" I asked. "You know I've been drowning in paperwork, especially with this Cayman expansion." He said it so casually, as if it were a normal business. "And I've finally done it. I've hired a new executive assistant. She's going to change my life." I held my breath. "She's just brilliant," he continued, taking a sip. "A real shark, in the best way. She's a real estate broker, so she's got an incredible head for property law. She's just amazing." He smiled, a wide, innocent, boyish smile. "The best part is, you'll get to meet her. I've invited her to the gala. She'll be at our table." "Really?" I said, my voice perfectly neutral. "That's fast, isn't it? Who is she?" "Her name is Chloe Davies," he said, without a flicker of deceit in his eyes. He was so confident in my ignorance, in my weakness, that he didn't even bother to lie. "You'll love her, Maya, I promise." He saw my silence as fatigue. I saw his confession as the final data point I needed. My nights were not spent resting. While he slept, I was in my home office, now a war room. Jenna, my legal team, and I were finalizing the presentation. It was not a legal document. It was a story. My story. Jenna had worked miracles. The Ascent Hotel runs their AV on a third-party vendor system. she explained over our secure channel. Their security is a joke. I've created a dummy admin account. I don't just have access, I am the system. I can override anything, from the stage lights to the CEO's teleprompter. Good, I said, dragging a new file into the sequence. I want the audio from his call with Chloe to play over the house speakers, not the stage. My lawyer, a sharp man named Costa, had finalized the legal packet. The moment your presentation ends, he said, my team, accompanied by 2 PIs who are now licensed process servers, will serve Mr. Walker with the divorce complaint, a temporary restraining order, and the asset freeze. Not just him, I said. Her, too. Chloe Davies. She is a co-conspirator. She gets served, too. I've also, Costa added, liaised with the Denver PD's Economic Crimes Unit. They won't be in the room, but they will be in the hotel lobby. They are very interested in your evidence package. My final arrangement was a personal one. I made a call to Mrs. Bishop. Eleanor, I said, I have a car for you. It will pick you up at 7:30 on Friday night, for the gala. Oh, dear, she said. I'm not sure I'm... You don't have to go in, I said gently. I just need you in the lobby. I've arranged for a comfortable suite for you and 3 other clients, the other victims. My team will be there with you. I just need you to be ready. It's important they see who he stole from. I'll be there, she said, her voice firm. I'll wear my good pearls. I hung up. I looked at the finished presentation. It was a masterpiece of data visualization. Timelines, bank transfers, audio files, and photographs. It was clear, concise, and utterly damning. I looked at the sapphire blue dress hanging on my door, a shimmering symbol of his arrogance. It was almost time. The grand ballroom at the Ascent Hotel was a shimmering lie. It was a cavern of crystal and fabricated importance, dripping with light from chandeliers that looked like frozen explosions. Hundreds of people, the absolute elite of Denver's financial world, milled about. There were Viridian Trust executives in sharp tuxedos, wealthy clients in glittering gowns, and a dozen members of the financial press, sharks circling for a story. The air smelled of expensive perfume, lobster, and the faint metallic scent of greed. I stood at the entrance, my hand on Liam's arm. The sapphire blue dress felt like a second skin, a suit of armor. My smile was a carefully calibrated curve, practiced in the mirror until it looked warm, supportive, and proud. Inside, my heart was a cold, efficient machine, pumping ice through my veins. Liam was in his element. He was the conquering hero, the star of the show. He wasn't just walking, he was holding court. Marcus, wonderful to see you, he boomed, shaking the hand of Viridian's CEO. Ah, Liam. The man of the hour, the CEO replied, clapping him on the back. And Maya, you look stunning. We're all so glad to see you looking so well. Thank you, Marcus, I said, my voice soft. I'm just so proud of him. Liam soaked it in. He moved through the room, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, his arm locked possessively around my waist. He was untouchable, the golden boy about to receive his crown. My rock, he kept saying, patting my hand. Couldn't have done any of it without my rock. I just smiled and nodded, the perfect, silent, supportive wife. Then, he tensed. I felt it, a small shift in the muscle of his arm. He was looking over my shoulder toward the main stage. He said, his voice bright and enthusiastic. There she is. Come on. Maya. There's someone truly special I want you to meet. He guided me through the crowd, past table 1. A woman in a breathtaking floor-length red dress stood as we approached. It was her, the woman from the jewelry store, Chloe. She was radiant, her dark hair shining, her makeup flawless. She looked like a movie star, and she knew it. Liam. She cooed, her voice like liquid honey, ignoring me completely. Chloe, you look magnificent, Liam said, his smile so wide it must have hurt his face. He put one hand on the small of her back, a gesture of casual, public ownership. "I'm so glad you could make it." He then turned to me, a picture of beaming innocence. "Maya, darling, this is the miracle worker I was telling you about. This is Chloe Davies, my new executive assistant. Chloe, this is my wonderful wife. Maya." Chloe's gaze finally landed on me. It was a quick, dismissive appraisal, an alpha predator sizing up a wounded animal. She extended a perfectly manicured hand. Her nails painted the same blood red as her dress. "It is such a pleasure to finally meet you," she said, her voice dripping with a sweetness that didn't reach her eyes. My gaze dropped from her face, past her hand, to her neck. There it was. It wasn't on her finger. That would be too obvious for a work event. It was hanging from a thick platinum chain, nestled just above the shadow of her cleavage. The 3-carat diamond, Mrs. Bishop's retirement fund, flashing and sparkling with every breath she took. She wanted me to see it. She was wearing it like a medal. "Liam has told me just so much about you," she continued, her smile widening as she saw me notice the necklace. I lifted my eyes back to hers. I kept my own smile perfectly, placidly in place. I did not take her hand. "That's funny," I said, my voice light and airy. "He hasn't stopped talking about you either." Her smile faltered, just for a millisecond. Liam, oblivious, laughed. "See, I knew you two would hit it off now. I need to go say hello to the marketing team. Don't move." He gave my arm a squeeze and strode off. The moment he was gone, I scanned the back of the ballroom, past the soundboards, near a service exit. I saw her. She was wearing the all-black uniform of the hotel's AV crew, complete with a headset and a clipboard. Jenna. She met my gaze across the crowded room and gave a single, sharp nod. The system was hers. Everything was ready. Liam returned, beaming, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "The awards are about to start," he said, handing me one. "My moment is almost here." I reached up and straightened his bow tie, a gesture of wifely devotion. "I know, darling," I said, my voice just breathy enough to sound emotional. "And I did a little something for you?" He looked intrigued. "Oh, what's that?" "It's a surprise," I said, giving him the adoring gaze he expected. "I know how much this award means to you, so I prepared a little video, a tribute, to celebrate you. I gave it to the AV team. They're going to play it right after you win." His face lit up with pure, unadulterated ego. He was picturing a sappy, sentimental slideshow of his life. Our wedding. His college graduation. "Maya," he breathed, pulling me into a hug. That's the most wonderful thing. Even after your surgery, you did that for me. You really are my lucky charm." "I'd do anything for you, Liam," I whispered against his chest. The lights in the ballroom began to dim. The CEO, Marcus Thorne, was walking toward the podium. "It's showtime," Liam whispered, squeezing my hand. I smiled back at him, the ice in my veins perfectly still. "Yes," I said. "It certainly is." The house lights dimmed, and a spotlight found Marcus Thorne at the podium. His voice was deep and resonant, filling the room. "Tonight, we honor excellence," he began. "We celebrate the advisor who exemplifies trust, integrity, and outstanding performance." I watched Liam. He was leaning forward, his leg jittering under the table, a picture of false humility. "This year, the competition was fierce," Thorne continued, "but one individual stood out, shattering records and earning the complete trust of his clients and his colleagues. The recipient of this year's Apex Advisor Award is Liam Walker." The room erupted. A wave of thunderous applause washed over us. The string quartet began playing a triumphant, generic fanfare. Liam stood up, his face a mask of profound, practiced surprise. He buttoned his tuxedo jacket, kissed me hard on the cheek, and then strode toward the stage. He shook hands with other executives, slapped a colleague on the back. He was the king. He bounded up the steps and embraced Marcus Thorne in a full back-thumping hug. Thorne presented him with the heavy, crystal-cut trophy. Liam held it high, like a conquering gladiator, and the crowd went wild again. Chloe, at our table, was weeping. She had tears of actual, genuine joy streaming down her face, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin so she wouldn't smudge her makeup. Liam stepped to the microphone, the crystal trophy gleaming under the lights. He let the applause die down, basking in it. "Wow," he breathed, shaking his head. "Wow, I am truly, truly humbled. I don't know what to say." He composed himself, pulling the microphone closer. "First, I want to thank the entire Viridian Trust family. Marcus, thank you for believing in me, for giving me the platform to do what I do best. To my team, you are the best in the business." He paused, looking directly at me, his gaze softening into that look of practiced devotion. "But most of all," he said, his voice dropping, becoming intimate despite the hundreds of people watching, "I have to thank my rock, my beautiful, brilliant wife, Maya." The spotlight beside his swung over and found me. I could feel the heat of it on my face. I placed a hand over my heart and smiled, a picture of adoration. She has been my support, my anchor, through everything. Liam continued, his voice thick with emotion. Especially these last few weeks, facing her own health crisis. She has been the bravest person I know. I am nothing without her. He raised his glass from the podium. "Baby," he said, locking his eyes on mine. "I love you." That was the signal. I didn't break eye contact. I kept the loving, teary-eyed smile fixed on my face, and I gave a single, slow, deliberate nod. From the back of the room, I saw a flicker of movement, Jenna's hand at the console. Liam, high on his own glory, was about to continue. And as I looked to the future, but Marcus Thorne stepped back into the light, holding up a hand. "Hold on, Liam, don't go any further." Liam looked confused. Thorne smiled broadly. "We can't let a moment like that pass. Before you continue, it seems your wonderful wife has a tribute of her own. We heard you had a little surprise for him." "Maya," Liam chuckled, a look of "oh you" passing between us. He turned, full of smug self-satisfaction, to face the massive 20-foot-wide screen behind him. "Well," he said to the crowd, "she is full of surprises." "Let's roll the video," Thorne announced. The screen lit up. The string quartet began a soft, sentimental tune. The first image appeared Liam and me, on our wedding day, laughing. The next Liam, holding his plaque for Rookie Advisor of the Year, 5 years ago. Then, us in Italy, drinking wine. Liam smiled, a little self-consciously, at the crowd. He looked back at me and mouthed, "This is amazing." And then, the music stopped. It didn't fade. It was cut, abruptly, as if by a knife. The screen went black for a single, jarring second. The entire room, caught off guard by the sudden absence of sound, fell silent. When the screen lit up again, it was different. It was split into 3 distinct clinical panels. Liam's back was to the screen, but his face was projected onto a smaller monitor on the podium. I watched his smile freeze, his brow furrow in confusion. In the center of the room, Chloe had stopped dabbing her eyes. On the left panel, an image. My image. The one I took through the window of Evermore Diamonds. It was crystal clear, Liam, looking radiant, sliding the diamond ring onto Chloe's finger. On the right panel, a document. A high-resolution scan. The transaction receipt from the jewelry store. It listed the item 3-carat round-cut platinum solitaire. It listed the price $75,000, and in the center panel, another document, a bank statement. It was not from Viridian Trust. It was from the rival bank, from his secret account. But it clearly showed the source of the funds, Transfer E, Bishop Pension Account. A single horrified gasp rose from someone in the front row. Liam was still staring at his monitor, his brain not yet processing the data. The crowd, however, they were looking from the screen to Liam, and then, disastrously for him, to Chloe, who was now frozen, her hand instinctively clutching the very same diamond sparkling on the chain around her neck. The ballroom was plunged into a silence so profound it was almost violent. It was a vacuum, sucking the air and the light from the room. 300 of the city's most powerful people sat as one, frozen. On the stage, Liam was a statue. His smile was still stretched across his face, a grotesque mask of shock, the muscles in his jaw locked. He was still clutching the crystal trophy, his knuckles white, and into that dead, terrible silence, a new sound emerged. His voice. Jenna was a maestro. She didn't play the audio through the stage monitors. She patched it through every speaker in the ballroom. His voice, casual, arrogant, and intimate, surrounded us all, as if he were whispering in every guest's ear. Just have to endure the sick, weak bookworm for one more week. Chloe. His voice echoed, warm and conspiratorial. Honestly, this gallbladder thing is a blessing. She's so wrapped up in her own pain. She hasn't even looked at the joint accounts. After the gala, we disappear with everything. A woman in the front row made a sound, a short, strangled shriek. The sick, weak bookworm was sitting right there, in a sapphire dress, watching. The screen changed again. The 3 panels dissolved. They were replaced by my true art, my final project. It was a data visualization, a flowchart so complex and so clear it was beautiful. It was a perfect, damning infographic, rendered in the official Viridian Trust corporate colors of navy blue and gold. The title, in sharp serif font, read, Liam Walker Client Diversification Analysis. It showed the inputs a list of 20 names, including Eleanor Bishop. It showed the amounts they had invested, and then it showed the outputs. A brilliant, terrible spiderweb of arrows, tracing every stolen dollar, not to bonds, not to mutual funds, but to a single central account, LRW, private holding. From that central hub, the lines diverged again. One arrow, labeled $75,000, pointed directly to a logo Evermore Diamonds. Another, thicker line, representing millions, snaked its way to a box labeled Cayman Islands, complete with 3 account numbers. It was his entire empire of lies, presented as a quarterly report. I glanced at Chloe. Her chair was empty. She was already halfway to the main exit, a streak of blood-red silk, her head down, moving faster than I'd ever seen anyone move in 6-inch heels. She was a rat fleeing a ship that had already hit the iceberg. She reached the grand oak doors and stopped. 2 men stepped in front of her. They were large. They were not wearing tuxedos. They were my private investigators, the ones I had hired with my own money. Ms. Chloe Davies. The first one said, his voice a calm, professional baritone that carried. She tried to dodge around him. He moved with her, blocking her path. Ms. Davies, he said, pulling a thick legal envelope from his jacket. You've been served. Back on the stage, the paralysis had broken. Marcus Thorne, the CEO, was a shade of plum. His face was a mask of pure apoplectic rage. He was not looking at Liam. He was screaming into his cell phone. I don't care, I don't care. His voice, even without a microphone, cut through the room. You get compliance on the line. Freeze his accounts. Freeze every trade he's made for 6 months. Freeze his building pass. Now. Liam finally moved. He let the trophy fall. It hit the podium with a dull thud and rolled off, shattering on the stage. the sound lost in the chaos. This is a lie, he stammered, grabbing for the microphone. She's sick, my wife is unstable. But the microphone was dead. Jenna had already cut his feed, and as he stood there, helpless, the main doors of the ballroom, the ones Chloe was still trapped at, swung open. It was Mrs. Bishop. She was wearing a simple black dress and her good pearls. She was flanked by 2 other victims from my list, a married couple in their 80s. She looked frail, and she was the most powerful person in the room. She didn't stop. She walked, slow and steady, down the main aisle. The crowd parted for her like water. She walked past the tables, past the shocked faces, and straight to the low stairs of the stage. Liam saw her. The blood left his face. "Eleanor," he whispered. "Eleanor." "No." She walked right up to him. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just looked at the man who had stolen her husband's legacy. She saw the microphone he had dropped on the podium, leaned down and picked it up. Jenna, my angel, switched it live. Her small, reedy voice filled the entire cavernous room. "You took everything," she said, her voice shaking but amplified. "You took my husband's life savings. You took my peace." She paused, looking him dead in the eye. "You ate my scones." That was the breaking point. The financial reporters, who had been sitting in stunned silence, exploded. They weren't guests, they were predators who smelled blood. Phones were raised. The bright red "Live" icon on a dozen different screens lit up. "This is Dan Rivers for the Financial Times, and we are live." Unbelievable scenes here at the Viridian Trust Gala. The biggest financial scandal in Denver's history wasn't just being exposed. It was being live-streamed. The chaos was immediate. The live-streaming reporters surged forward, creating a wave of bodies toward the stage. Hotel security, recognizing a complete loss of control, finally moved in, forming a protective line at the steps. But it was too late. The story was already out. From the lobby, the real authorities, the 2 economic crimes detectives my lawyer had prepped, pushed through the crowd. They were followed by my own private investigators. They weren't here to protect the guests. They were here to collect the assets. Liam was trapped. He was on the stage, a brightly lit island, with Marcus Thorne screaming at him from one side, Mrs. Bishop staring at him with cold disappointment from the other, and a sea of flashing cameras in front. He looked around, his eyes wild, searching for an escape, for an ally. And then his gaze found me. I was standing up from my table, the sight of me, not cowering, not weeping, but standing tall, seemed to break him. The last thread of his composure snapped. "Maya!" He roared. The name was a raw, guttural sound, ripped from his throat. His face was a contorted mask of pure, unfiltered hatred. "Maya, what did you do? What did you do? You ruined me." All the cameras, all the eyes, all the attention in the room swiveled from him to me. I did not stay by my table. I began to walk. I walked the long, open space between the tables, my footsteps silent on the thick carpet. I walked past the shocked faces of his colleagues, past the gaping mouth of his boss. I walked right to the foot of the stage, stopping just below him. He was breathing heavily, his tuxedo jacket twisted, his expensive hair a mess. He looked down at me, his face red and blotchy. A man reduced from a king to a cornered animal in less than 5 minutes. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. In the sudden, expectant hush, my voice, calm and clear, carried to every corner of the room. "No, Liam," I said, looking straight into his eyes. "You ruined yourself. You did this. You ruined yourself the second you decided that your greed was more important than a single human being." I held his gaze, refusing to let him look away. "You ruined yourself when you sat in Mrs. Bishop's kitchen and lied to her. You ruined yourself with every client you betrayed, with every dollar you stole to build this fantasy life. My gaze flicked, just for a moment, to the side of the room, where Chloe was now in handcuffs. One of my I was reading her rights as she sobbed. And you ruined yourself, I continued, my voice as sharp and clean as a scalpel. When you looked at me, your wife, the data analyst, and you thought I was too stupid, too weak, and too sick to read the numbers. I let that hang in the air. I let him feel the weight of his own profound miscalculation. You, I said, were the single worst risk assessment of my entire life. He just stared, his mouth open, no sound coming out. Oh, I added, as if it were an afterthought. And my surgery was postponed. I watched the final piece of data click into place behind his eyes. The realization, the timeline. I was never in recovery. Liam, I was at the Cherry Creek Mall. I saw everything. I've been watching you for a week. I saw it all. Right from the jewelry store. That was the kill shot. The hope that this was some explainable mistake, some hack, some corporate espionage, vanished. This was personal. This was total. Liam didn't just stumble. He collapsed. His legs gave out from under him, and he went down to his knees on the stage, a truly, finally broken man. A detective, the one in the slightly better suit, stepped forward. Liam Walker, he said, his voice bored and professional. You're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and suspicion of... I didn't stay to listen. The rest was just procedure. As the detective pulled Liam's hands behind his back and the sound of the first ratchet of handcuffs clicked, I turned around. The entire ballroom was still staring at me. I was the center of their universe, the sick, weak bookworm. I walked back to table 1. The champagne was still bubbling in my untouched glass. I looked at the centerpiece, the gaudy floral arrangement, and then I looked at my own neck in the reflection of a silver water pitcher. I was still wearing his gifts, slowly, deliberately. I reached behind my head and unclasped the diamond necklace, the one he had given me for our 5th anniversary. It was heavy and cold and expensive. I placed it on the table, right next to the floral arrangement, a silent tip for services rendered. I turned my back on the shattered crystal, on the sobbing mistress, on the man in handcuffs. I walked past the flashing cameras, past the screaming CEO, past Mrs. Bishop, to whom I gave a small, respectful nod. And for the first time in 6 years, I walked out of a room completely and utterly on my own. It's been a few days. I'm in a new apartment. It's not a penthouse. It's a clean, minimalist 1-bedroom with white walls and a lot of light. It's leased under my name, paid for with my money. It is blissfully empty. The television, which I have on mute, is a constant stream of what they're calling the Viridian Gala scandal. The fallout was immediate. Viridian Trust is in freefall, facing federal investigations and a class action lawsuit from the clients I identified. Marcus Thorne resigned yesterday, his entire career erased in a single night. My lawyer called me this morning. Liam and Chloe have both been denied bail. The evidence was, in his words, an ironclad, gift-wrapped conviction. Apparently, they are turning on each other, each one claiming to be the other's victim. It's a classic prisoner's dilemma, and I'm quite sure they will both choose the option that leads to the worst possible outcome for them both. I'm recovering. I had the surgery, the actual surgery. It was scheduled for 2 days after the gala. It went perfectly. Jenna was the one who drove me home. She's the one who brought me soup. She's currently on a forced, paid leave from Innovate for unofficial use of company resources, which will quietly become a promotion and a massive raise for identifying a significant external security threat as soon as I get back to the office. This morning, a package arrived, delivered by a messenger. It was from Costa, my lawyer, but the return address was from Mrs. Bishop's legal team. Inside, there was a simple, dark blue velvet box, not from Evermore Diamonds, something older, more classic. I opened it. There it was, the 3-carat platinum set diamond, the symbol of my husband's betrayal, bought with a widow's stolen life. It seemed smaller, somehow, without the dramatic lighting of a jewelry store or the backdrop of a red dress. Beneath the box was a thick, cream-colored card, a letter written in a strong, elegant script. "Miss Maya," it began. She didn't call me Mrs. Walker. "This ring, I am told, was purchased with my stolen money. The authorities recovered it from your husband's co-conspirator, and my lawyers have successfully claimed it as a recovered asset, as it was a direct, traceable purchase. I do not want it. I cannot look at it. It is a symbol of a great deal of pain and profound stupidity. My lawyer informs me that you are the person responsible for finding the truth, the auditor who made the first call. He says you are a brilliant analyst. I believe him. I would like you to have it." I stopped, confused. I read the next part twice. "Please, sell it, or throw it in the river. But if I may be so bold, I suggest you consider this your first invoice, a payment for services rendered. The first of many, I hope. Take the money that wicked, foolish boy tried to steal, and use it to build the life he tried to take from you. Use it to build something better. Godspeed, Eleanor Bishop." I stared at the ring in my hand. The perfect round-cut diamond, the symbol of my marriage's end, the symbol of his greed. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I laughed. It wasn't a bitter laugh. It was a genuine, full, and slightly rusty laugh. Mrs. Bishop was right. This wasn't a symbol of betrayal. This wasn't an artifact of pain. This was data. It was the first seed money. It was the first asset in a new portfolio. I was going to sell it. And I was going to use the money to start my own firm. An investment firm. A risk analysis firm. One that didn't just look at the numbers, but at the people behind them. Thank you so much for listening to this story. We would love to know where in the world you're tuning in from, so please drop a comment below, share your thoughts, and let's connect. Please subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories, like this video, and give that hype button a smash to help this story be heard by more people.